Good morning, or I guess good evening, depending upon when you're going to watch the show, but it's afternoon for us right now. So today I'm very excited. I have Jessie May Kessler as my guest. And Jessie and I first met in Toastmasters several years ago and had a compelling story that she told in several speeches that she gave. She is a licensed clinical therapist, social worker, therapist, and is an author and is very talented, very smart, very intuitive as well. So excited, Jessie, that you are here. Is it Jessie or Jessie May? What do you like to be called?
Most people call me Jessie.
Okay.
When you get to know me very well, they usually call me Jess.
Okay, so we'll just start with Jess then. So we have two books. The first book I have read and I enjoyed it. The first book is A Bird and the Dragon, their love story. And this is a memoir, and this is your relationship with your husband, if I remember.
Second husband.
Your second husband, and just a lovely piece. And I love the cover of it, too, just with a tree with hearts, so beautiful. So
There's a lot of symbolism in that cover.
And I remember a lot of, and is this a picture of you as a young girl?
No, that's my daughter.
Your daughter, what a beauty.
One of the five.
One of the five. You had 5 girls?
5 girls.
Wow.
This was a second marriage, so it was 2 daughters from his family and 3 daughters from mine.
Nice, very nice.
It's basically the story of putting those together.
Kind of like the Brady Bunch, huh?
And some of the challenges that go along with that.
Of course. Well, good thing you were a licensed therapist.
Well, I got my license after I married him because I figured I needed something.
You needed to figure out what you were doing, how to make the soup and stew all go together.
Yep.
So this was a beautiful book, and I loved reading it. But this one is your newest one, and you call it Bitsy's Story. Did they call you Bitsy when you were a little girl?
Bitsy is a made-up name.
Okay.
Because when I first sat down to write this, I could not use my family name. My family nickname was Birdie, and it just took me back to all of the incapacity that I had when I was sick with rheumatic fever at 5 years old.
5 years of age, and we had a conversation just to kind of get warmed up about this whole conversation. So as Bitsy, as the little girl at the age of 5, the doctor said to you, complete bed rest is what you told me.
Complete bed rest, and couldn't get out of bed to go to the bathroom, couldn't get out of bed to get a toy. Could not join the family for meals.
Not even, and you said not even sitting up, like you were pretty flat on your back or on your side kind of thing.
Right. When you read it, you will read a place in which my mother and I had a long discussion about whether I could sit up or whether it was a 1 elbow prop that I could have. And she voted for the 1 elbow prop. So now I'm struggling with the PT issues that go along with having had that side of the body on the bed for so long.
And you didn't rotate, you didn't do one side for one meal and
Oh, you would rotate, but you can't shovel with the left hand very well.
Oh, I see. And then was what you ate altered as well? Did you have to?
No, the food was the same food as the family ate.
Okay, so that's good. And where were you in the family? Were you one of the older kids, or?
That's all part of. This book is written in such a way that you have the chapter that is the child telling her story.
Sure.
And then the chapter that follows that is the therapist, the now adult therapist, making comments on the family and why what the psychology was in the family that caused them to do things the way they were doing them.
Well, this was a long time ago. It was, practices were different. Our medical understanding was different. So now we have the wisdom of how we can look at things. But at that time, we did, of course, always do the best we can, right?
Right. And a small town listens to the small town doctor who says, absolutely. And so that's what we did.
So would you like to read a little bit? Is there a passage or a paragraph that is kind of quintessential as far as?
I thought there's an introduction and it's long and windy, but you really need it for understanding the whole book. I would start with the first chapter, a little bit of the first chapter, to get your interest in the book. And the first chapter, of course, is written by the little girl.
Okay. Would you like to do that for me?
Yes.
Oops, I'm sorry.
The first chapter is entitled That Horrible, Awful Carol Simpson. My regular school bus had come and gone. I stood by the window, turning the handle of the silver pencil sharpener, grinding away on my yellow wooden pencil, that curse to all first graders. On tiptoe, I could see out the window. The sun, partly blocked by the brick schoolhouse, was causing shadows behind the playground swing. The big silver swing set, with its straddled silver legs, looked like a silly giraffe I'd seen in a book. The departing bus and the stringy shadows told me it was late afternoon, time to be going home. The year was 1945. I knew because Mother had explained that being born in 1940, I was always the same number as the year. I was 5. In the morning, let's see.
So I'm just imagining the feeling of watching that school bus leave and go when you wanted to be on it and couldn't be. And
teacher finally told me to stay after school to finish my penmanship paper. This event was the first time in my life I'd ever had to stay after school. Of course, I'd been in school about 3 weeks. I was scared I was going to miss the second bus. What if Mommy didn't know where I was? Teacher said, Bitsy, the second bus, the one you will have to take, is 15 minutes later than the regular bus. You will only be 15 minutes late going home. I must have looked scared. She went on, do you want to go to the office and call your mother? I shook my head. No. How could I tell her? I didn't know how to use the telephone. Once, when I was 4, I was playing with a phone at home and got to talk to somebody. I was speaking French to the woman on the other end, the same French my sister was talking out loud as she was doing her homework for high school French class. Mother didn't yell at me, but she sure looked mad. She told me I shouldn't ever use the phone again in that manner. And it has really hamstringed me in using a telephone.
even today.
Even today.
Wow. You know, if we could just pause for a second and just talk about the importance of our words and things that were said to you decades ago, that you can still like hear the voice, hear the tone, hear is like imagine the room that you were in, all of those components that.
I've just had a new logo made up, and the byline on it, it's all in the communication. Because that is so true, that it depends on the child. A lot of children, it just slides off, but other children, they hear it and they internalize it, and it's there forever. And I tried to get rid of that problem when I was in college, and I signed up to answer the phones in the dormitory office. And 4 years, and it still has not gone away. I could handle the phone fine in that role, but in the role of having to call somebody to ask for something, that old message is still there.
Oh boy, what a struggle. All right, keep going. This is very compelling to me, very interesting.
I'm thinking about mothers being upset and look up to see Carol Simpson charging toward me from across the playground. I freeze to the swing. Now what is she going to do to me? Now the piece I left out is I've stayed after school and I'm now sitting waiting for the bus.
Okay.
Carol lives across the street from me, from my house. Both our families are part of the big green lawns and farm fields that make up the grounds of the Industrial School for Juvenile Delinquent Boys at Shakerton, Massachusetts. Carol is a sneaky kid that treats you nice one minute and punches you the next. She's 2 years older and bigger than me, and she's still coming. Okay. Want to push? Carol asks, nearly out of breath. I shake my head no, brace my feet against the dirt under the swing. You never know what Carol is going to do next. Ah, come on. I'll just give you a little push. I won't put you up high. If she says she's not going to put me up high, that's just where I'm going. Carol will blow me into the sky, up over the silver cross pieces at the top of the swing set. I'll fly right off into space and maybe never come back. No, don't push me, I say, struggling to get the words out. I back up, pulling myself in the swing, cradling me farther away from Carol. What? Are you afraid of me? Carol steps closer. I shake my head no, but my heart is pounding a resounding yes. Once more, trying to avoid her, I step back, swing and all. Carol moves forward again. In a very clever move, at least at the time I thought it was smart, I stepped aside, wrapping myself in the swing chains around one of the silver support poles of the swing set, putting the heavy chains between Carol and me. My move is too much for Carol, who makes a swipe at my face. I duck, but now find my clever move has simply made me a prisoner, locked in place by the heavy chains wound around myself and the support pole. I try frantically to unwind the chains. The ducking move angers Carol, and she punches me with her fist. Oh God, I hope the bus comes quick. Carol's too big for me. She's going to beat me to death. Just then, the old station wagon, the school bus for the state school children, pulls up.
Wow. Well, I think that really gives us a flavor and a taste. You know, you write well. I can understand the voice. I understand
the change of voice.
The change of voice, right, and the fear, and like the trauma and all that you're doing. And I like how you've given this a subtitle too: "Healing the Pain of Silence." Can you talk about that a little bit? So we kind of touched on it, but that silence, that pain, because back in those days we didn't really. Go ahead, tell me what you think.
No, in 1945. You got the diagnosis, you lived in a small town, you did exactly what the doctors told you, your parents didn't question it. They worked around in fear that you were going to die. My father's oldest brother died of rheumatic fever at 5 years old. So this was one of the stories that were in the background while all of this was going on. And what happens is that most families who are going through a tragic situation like this or a difficult situation like this don't talk about it much at the time, don't share their feelings very much. And once you're healed, they're so glad that it's all over, they don't want to go back to it. So it's never talked about. And as I told you when we talked before, I asked my best friend in college to review my book for me. And when she let me look at the review, she said privately, "You wrote the book to break the silence, right? Because I never knew this about you, and I knew you so well."
Well, she was your best friend. You would think pretty much you had told her everything. And she knew a lot about you, but she didn't know one of your deepest, most significant pains and experiences that formed who you are.
Who I am and how I function and the things that hold me back. I have wanted to write. In fact, I promised my uncle, who was a best-selling author in the 50s, that I was going to write just like him when I grew up. And it's taken me all this time to get up enough courage and enough self-confidence to do it.
Well, and then you mentioned that you had to change the names. So it's it's a different name, you didn't use your last name, you wouldn't want to disclose perhaps.
When I was a toddler and used to go running across the lawn, my grandmother named me My Little Bird. And my family picked it up and called me Birdie. Well, for me, Birdie was associated with this little 5-year-old who was stuck in bed for all this time, didn't know how to relate to people, was often laughed at by my siblings that were 9 and 10 years older than I. And so when I started to write the book the very first time, I could not use that name. And Jessie May was not really appropriate for a girl that age. And so we came up with a story and a name. It's in the beginning of the book, and it's Bitsy's story.
Nice, very nice. So are your siblings still alive? Are they?
My sister is gone. My oldest sister has gone. I had hoped she would be along long enough to hear how I thought our relationship went, but she's not. My older brother, who is the one in the picture, is still alive, and my younger brother.
So they have heard the story, and they know your pain and your...
They lived with it, but they lived with the version where my mother told them, go off to school, go off, do your things, don't make her unhappy, don't make her upset, don't fight with her, don't interact with her. And so I was, to a certain extent, isolated.
Absolutely isolated. And you said it was before the time of television, and you didn't know how to read, and you didn't have a tutor coming in to teach you to read.
The schools hadn't gotten to the place yet where that was mandated. It was mandated the second year. I was sick through the winter of the year that I would turn 6. And it was mandated that year that there had to be a teacher. So I tell about in the book how that turned out for me and the fact that I did get a teacher then.
Nice. Very good. Because that would break some of the isolation. At least you had somebody who was paying attention to you and listening to you and encouraging you and helping you to develop. How did you entertain yourself? What did you do?
Color.
A lot of coloring.
A lot of coloring. And now we've gone through a phase of adult coloring books. Somebody in the middle of that phase said, "Would you like one of those?" And I said, "No, never again a coloring book."
Right. Are you artistic? Do you enjoy art, other mediums?
I do enjoy art. The cover of my first book was done by my granddaughter with supervision.
Well, she did a beautiful job.
There's a lot of symbolism in that.
Absolutely. Do you want to explain some of the symbolism? Well, you would be the bird in the tree, I'm guessing.
I'm the bird. The dragon is my second husband. And he gets his name from the fact that when we were first courting, he took me home to his house to have dinner one time when we got all the children at my house with a babysitter. And he took me into his library to show me all of the books and asked me if I was a reader, and I had to confess that I wasn't really. And he then asked, did I like poetry? And I said, yes, I liked poetry. And he picked out an anthology and turned to Custard the Cowardly Dragon and began to read it to me. And it's all about the dragon who wants only a warm, safe cave. And if you go back and read the poem, I had to, I couldn't copy the poem into the book because of the copyright, the new copyrights. And so it held up the book for a long, long time. And one time I was saying to my sister, I don't know what I'm going to do, but they really need to have the poem. And she said, tell him what you heard him read you. So that's what I did. But the bottom line of that was I knew I could make a warm, safe cave.
Lovely.
So that's why.
And he knew that in you too. He already had that figured out.
So that's why he became the dragon, and of course I'm the bird from My Little Bird as a child.
Lovely, lovely.
Families are often represented by trees. So we had the tree, and she did all of this. And then when I first saw the cover, they had put a lot of hearts on it and slid the hearts underneath the writing so you couldn't see either very well. So I sent it back and said, please separate it, and I really only need 5 hearts on the tree because they're the 5 daughters. Now when Cy and I first got together, I had all these little girls, preteens, teenagers, with all their little socks and all their little panties and all their little undershirts, and how in the wash do you keep these separated? So I would, every time new clothes came in, I would put a thread of a color that I had chosen for them.
Oh, and each one was a different one. One was red, one was pink, one was blue, one was green, one was yellow.
And I did not tell the publishers what colors to use. I just told them I needed 5 hearts. Every single one of the hearts are the colors of those tags that were on the kids' clothes.
Well, that's coincidence, right? A little serendipity.
That's a God wink.
God wink, there you go. I like that. Very sweet.
So that is why, unfortunately, it looks like a children's book, and I didn't recognize that before it went out. So a lot of people go buy it because they think it's a children's story. I later put stickers on those books that I give out that says it's an adult love story.
An adult love story, that's very nice, yeah. And what was your brother's reaction when you have 2 brothers now, so what were their reactions to hearing your story and understanding your perspective and knowing a little bit that you weren't so fragile, right? You were wanting to have more of a relationship.
He hasn't read the book yet.
But you've had conversations.
My older brother, Owen, who is now 91 years old, wrote back this message when I suddenly remembered I needed to ask his permission to use the picture of him, the rabbit, and myself on the book cover of Bitsy's story. The cover was already set up and ready to go.
Oh, geez. And he was fine with that.
He wrote back, about the book cover, fine. Use the photo of us as you see fit. But there is a background information. The rabbit's name was Butch and was one of the first litter of rabbits from his 4-H project I put in. I had purchased 3 pre-bred New Zealand white rabbits, 2 females, 1 male. I built 3 cages, and one morning when I looked out the window, there was rabbit fur in 1 cage.
Oh, no.
And squirming around in the fur were 12 little rabbits. A miracle had occurred because it was a male that had given birth. And to top it off, half of them were black. Ultimately, I had 64 rabbits, and Butch was the last to go.
Oh, that's cute. That's really sweet. Yeah. What about your younger brother? Did you get any feedback from him?
Oh, my younger brother wrote the second
forward
review
on
that's on
okay.
Amazon.
Okay.
Third one. With my younger brother, again, in both books, well, in the first book, I had it all ready to go, and they told me that I needed to pick a pen name. And I said I couldn't do a pen name because this book was to be a tribute to my husband, therefore the names had to be the same. And they said, well, in that case, then you need to change all the names in the book, all the names of all the places, tweak the events, and so on. So another year later, I did all of that so that the names could be the same. And so I've just carried that through into this book. So the names that were used there are used here.
So they really wanted their privacy and they weren't comfortable with the disclosure of the information, is what I'm hearing you say.
I told you that my uncle in the 1950s wrote bestsellers, and they were all about family. They started all about family, and then he went on to other things. And in those books, he used all of their names. And I can remember thinking, even as a child, you know, that's pretty out there in the public, especially when you become a bestseller. And so, although it was a big job, I think it was wise that we changed the names.
Well, they say if you write some historical fiction, if it's a memoir type, to be careful with that. And you know, there's a lot of information.
I guess according to the rules, you can use the full name of anyone who has passed away. But you can't do that for people who are still living. So basically what I did was I picked up middle names, and most of the time I used middle names instead of their full name. Because sitting talking to you, I might not remember who I'm talking about unless it's related to something I already know.
Right, exactly. I understand that. So I think the message that you're saying is that therapy is really important. It's important to work through some of these childhood traumas, perhaps?
Actually, Bitsy's story is an illustration, actually, of one of the many techniques, particularly more a self-technique, that you can use to help heal some of these old wounds. Because interspersed in there are a couple of conversations with Bitsy, who is hidden in a mirror at that point. And through those dialogues, you see her come forward finally and come and sit on the top of my computer and ask to be integrated into me. So the book is almost on 3 levels.
Absolutely, it's on 3 levels, and I can see that completely. And I've been teaching some writing groups, and that's a lot of what we'll do in the writing is just some small self-disclosures of different things and sharing in the group what that was like and how that is, and helping to heal some of those things. So.
Right. Well, that's where the silence comes in. I firmly believe that we all need a witness, and we look to our mothers to be witnesses, we look to our spouses to be witnesses. And some of us don't get that.
No, we don't.
And this is where the therapist comes in. because
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
the therapist's main job, is to be the witness to the story.
Interesting, very interesting. Very compelling. I'm going to buy it. I would recommend everybody who's watching to buy it. Bitsy's story, Jessie May Kessler, Healing the Pain of Silence, and it's available, Gatekeeper Press.
And on Amazon.com.
Oh, there you go. There's Amazon.
You probably can order it from Barnes & Noble.
Barnes & Noble. There you go. A couple of options with how to get it. So, Jessie May, thank you so much for being my guest. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for having that courage and the resilience. You're very resilient.
Yes.
We have to be.
Yeah, you
We
have to be.
be.
There are so many rabbit holes along the way. We have to learn how to crawl out of them and make something of what we've learned.
I like that. I like that. So,
Yeah.
and thank you for sharing. Your wisdom is very important to heal the hearts of so many people. So thank you.
Good. Thank you for the interview.